Welcome back to my YouTube channel Coin Secrets. What if I told you that one small, ordinary looking penny, possibly sitting forgotten in a jar, a drawer, or an old family collection, has quietly sold for as much as $849,000? Not a rare gold bar. Not a stock certificate. A single American penny. Before you dismiss this as another internet exaggeration, pause for a moment and ask yourself this question. When was the last time you actually looked closely at the coins you already own? Because today's story isn't about luck. It's about awareness. And the people who win big in this market are the ones who pay attention. Welcome to the hidden world of the 1944 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny, one of the most quietly powerful coins in American history. This is not just a coin. It's a wartime survivor, a historical anomaly, and for a very small number of people, a life-changing financial asset. And if you think pennies can't change lives, history strongly disagrees. Let's rewind to Act 1, the setup. The year was 1944. America was deep in World War II. Copper was critically needed for ammunition, wiring, and military equipment. The U.S. Mint had already experimented with steel pennies in 1943 to conserve copper. By 1944, the Mint officially returned to copper-based planchets. Or at least, that was the plan. Because history, as it often does, had other ideas. During the chaotic transition between metals, a small number of 1944 Lincoln wheat pennies were accidentally struck on leftover steel planchets from 1943. No mint mark. No warning. No announcement. Just silent mistakes slipping into circulation. At the time, nobody noticed. Imagine buying a newspaper, paying for coffee, or tossing change into your pocket, completely unaware you were holding what would one day be worth more than most homes. Here's the part that should make you sit up straighter. These coins were not recalled. They were not destroyed. They escaped into the real world. And decades later, collectors realized just how rare, and how powerful, this error truly was. Today, confirmed examples of the 1944 no-mint mark steel wheat penny are among the most aggressively pursued coins in the entire U.S. market. Now let's move into Act 2, the rising stakes. Why does this coin command such massive value? Simple. Extreme rarity combined with historical significance and verified mint-era status. Fewer than a few dozen authentic examples are believed to exist. That's not rare, that's microscopic. And when demand from elite collectors, investors, and auction houses collides with supply that small, prices don't rise. They explode. Certified examples of this coin have reached current market values as high as $849,000, and interest continues to grow. Not decline. Grow. Every year, more investors move away from volatile paper assets and into tangible, historical wealth. Coins like this are no longer just collectibles. They are portable stores of value, immune to inflation in ways most people never consider. And that's why serious buyers don't negotiate gently for coins like this. They compete. Here's a quick attention reset, because this is where people usually say, "That will never happen to me." Funny thing is, almost every documented discovery of a rare error coin started with someone saying exactly that. The difference? One person checked. The other didn't. Opportunity doesn't announce itself. It hides in plain sight. The 1944 no-mint mark wheat penny should weigh differently, react to a magnet if it's steel, and show the unmistakable design of Lincoln on the obverse and wheat ears on the reverse. To the untrained eye, it looks ordinary. To a trained buyer, it looks like six figures. That contrast is where fortunes are made. Now let's step into Act 3. The resolution and opportunity. This is the moment where fear, excitement, and urgency collide, in a good way. Fear of missing out. Excitement of possibility. Urgency to act before someone else does. Because every year, fewer untouched collections exist. Every year, more coins are graded, locked away, and removed from circulation forever. And every year, prices adjust upward as scarcity tightens its grip. Here's the truth successful collectors understand. Wealth doesn't always come from earning more. Sometimes it comes from recognizing what already has value. Many people chase opportunity. Smart people identify it quietly and move first. That's why high net worth collectors are actively searching for wartime era pennies right now. Not tomorrow. Right now. If you or your family have old wheat pennies, inherited coin jars, estate collections, or rolls tucked away decades ago, you are already closer than you think. The difference between curiosity and action can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. This market rewards decisiveness, knowledge, and timing has never been better. So the real question isn't whether the 1944 no-mint Mark Lincoln wheat penny is valuable. The market has already answered that. The real question is whether the next one will be found by someone who understands what they're holding, or by someone who unknowingly spends history for 1 cent, because in the world of rare coins, the smallest objects often carry the biggest outcomes. And sometimes, wealth isn't discovered, it's recognized. Somewhere in America right now, a single copper penny, yes, 1 penny, is quietly sitting in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can, completely ignored. And yet, that same penny could be worth up to $548,000. Not a stock. Not crypto. Not real estate. A 1957 Lincoln wheat penny with a rare error. And here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask themselves: what if you already own it and don't even know it? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at loose change the same way again. This is not a fairy tale, and it's not speculation. This is the real story of how ordinary Americans, teachers, retirees, factory workers, have turned overlooked coins into life-changing wealth. And today, the spotlight is on one of the most quietly powerful coins ever produced by the United States Mint, the 1957 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that has shocked collectors, stunned auction houses, and created six-figure windfalls for those who recognized its hidden potential before everyone else did. Let's begin where all great wealth stories begin. With something that almost nobody paid attention to. In 1957, the Denver Mint was running at full speed. Millions of Lincoln wheat pennies were struck and released into circulation. To the average American, these were nothing more than everyday pocket change. Pennies used to buy a newspaper, left behind on a counter, or tossed into jars without a second thought. But under that pressure, speed, and mass production, something extraordinary happened. Errors were born, and in the coin world, errors are not mistakes. They are miracles. Some 1957 wheat pennies were struck with dramatic minting errors, off-center strikes, die cracks, doubled features, and planchet irregularities that should never have made it past inspection. Yet they did. And today, those coins are among the most aggressively pursued assets in the numismatic market. When authenticated and preserved in high grades, these era coins have commanded prices reaching $548,000 at auction. That's not hype. That's documented demand. Here's the moment most people miss. These coins were never recalled. They were never advertised. They simply blended into circulation, hiding in plain sight for decades. Which means, statistically speaking, some of them are still out there, sitting quietly in collections inherited from parents or grandparents. And that creates a very real fear for many Americans today. What if I already spent something priceless without realizing it? Now, let's reset your attention for a second with a simple thought. If someone offered you a lottery ticket with a known history of paying out $500,000, and it was already sitting in your house, would you ignore it? Of course not. Yet that's exactly what millions of people are doing with old wheat pennies right now. Funny how we search for wealth everywhere, except where it's most likely hiding. This brings us to the heart of the story, the emotional turning point. Collectors and investors today are not just buying coins. They are buying scarcity, history, and certainty. The 1957 wheat penny represents the final chapter of an era. Just 1 year later, the wheat design would be retired forever. That alone gives this coin historical gravity. Add a verified mint error, and suddenly you're holding an object that cannot be recreated, duplicated, or replaced. No government can print more of it. No mint can reproduce it. That finality is why demand continues to rise year after year, and here's where urgency enters the conversation. The generation that saved these coins is aging. Collections are being liquidated, Estates are being sold. And as more examples are authenticated and absorbed into private collections, availability shrinks. Fewer coins. More buyers. Rising prices. This is the same economic formula that has built fortunes for decades, and it's happening right now in the rare coin market. Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable, but could change your future. When was the last time you actually looked at the coins you own? Not glanced at them, but truly examined them. Because the difference between a common penny and a $548,000 penny is not luck. It's knowledge. And knowledge always moves faster than the crowd. Now, let's be clear. Not every 1957 Wheat penny is valuable. But the ones with significant errors, especially those professionally graded, are in extreme demand. These coins are actively sought by high-net-worth collectors, institutional buyers, and investors who understand that tangible assets outperform uncertainty over time. In an age of inflation, debt, and digital volatility, rare coins offer something refreshing: permanence. And yes, it's ironic. In a world obsessed with what's new, some of the smartest money is chasing what's old. As we move into the final act of this story, the question becomes personal. This isn't just about history or collectors. It's about opportunity. The kind that rewards those who act before the crowd catches on. The kind that turns curiosity into confidence, and confidence into cash. Right now, the market for rare US-era coins is stronger than ever. Auction houses are reporting intense competition. Prices are being driven upward by scarcity and global interest. And the 1957 Lincoln Wheat Penny era stands firmly in the spotlight as a proven, high-value asset with a track record that speaks for itself. So here's the quiet truth. Wealth doesn't always announce itself with noise. Sometimes it whispers from a small copper coin, waiting for someone serious enough to listen. If you own old coins, especially wheat pennies, you are not holding spare change. You are holding potential. And potential, when recognized, becomes power. Before you dismiss this as someone else's story, remember this. Every six-figure coin sale began with someone picking up a coin and asking a better question than everyone else. And that question is simple: what if this is worth more than I think? The only real risk left is doing nothing. We're uncovering the true story of the 1958 no-mint mark Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny error, a coin that has shocked collectors, rewritten auction records, and quietly turned everyday Americans into six-figure winners. Before you scroll away, ask yourself one dangerous question: what if the most valuable thing you own is something you've already overlooked? This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is the American coin market at its most unforgiving and most rewarding. The year was 1958, the final chapter of the iconic wheat penny era. It was supposed to be a routine minting year, the end of a long tradition. But history had other plans. In a rare and extraordinary twist, a small number of 1958 pennies were struck with dramatic minting errors so significant that they transformed a 1-cent coin into one of the most aggressively pursued pieces in modern numismatics. And here's the part that should stop you cold: many of these coins entered circulation unnoticed. They were spent, saved, forgotten, until the right eyes recognized their power. Now let's pause for a second, because this is where most people make a costly mistake. When they hear the word error, they think damaged. They think defective. They think worthless. But in the elite world of rare coins, an authentic mint error is not a flaw. It's a fingerprint. It's proof that the coin escaped perfection, and perfection is common. Errors are rare. Errors are demanded. Errors are where serious money flows. In fact, the most valuable 1958 no-mint mark wheat pennies are known for dramatic doubled die errors, where the inscriptions appear visibly doubled, bold, and unmistakable even to the naked eye. No microscope. No guesswork. Just undeniable presence. Here's a quick reality check, because this part makes people nervous, and it should. These coins are not being made again. There is no second run. No reissue. No chance for the supply to increase. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or locked away in private collections. And while supply shrinks, demand does the opposite. High-end collectors, investment funds, and private buyers are aggressively competing for top-grade examples. One authenticated 1958 no-mint mark Wheat Penny error has reached a confirmed market value of $543,000, and that number didn't happen by accident. It happened because scarcity met desire at exactly the wrong time for anyone who didn't already own one. Act 2 is where the story gets uncomfortable, in a good way. Because this is where you realize the opportunity isn't theoretical. It's personal. These coins were not sold exclusively to collectors in velvet boxes. They were distributed through banks. They passed through hands. They sat in pockets. And many were saved simply because people liked wheat pennies. Think about that. Someone didn't need insider knowledge. They didn't need Wall Street access. They just needed the patience to keep a coin. And decades later, that patience became power. So here's the uncomfortable question. Have you checked your old coins lately, or are they still deciding your future without your permission? Now, let's inject a little truth with a smile, because attention matters. If a single penny can be worth over $500,000, what does that say about the jar you ignored because it felt too small to matter? Funny how the smallest things demand the biggest respect once money gets involved. And make no mistake, this market is not slowing down. Professional grading services are seeing increased submissions of late 1950s wheat pennies. Auction houses are reporting heightened bidding wars. And collectors are no longer asking if prices will rise, they're asking how fast. This brings us to Act 3, the moment where urgency replaces curiosity. Because timing is everything. The 1958 no-mint mark wheat penny sits at a perfect intersection of history, rarity, and emotion. It marks the end of an era. It carries a visible, dramatic error. And it appeals to both seasoned collectors and first-time investors seeking tangible assets with proven performance. Coins like this don't need marketing. They need discovery. And the people who discover them early are the ones who define the outcome. Here's the empowering truth. Wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the past. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. And sometimes it waits for someone confident enough to take it seriously. If you own old coins, especially wheat pennies from the 1950s, you are not holding nostalgia, you're holding possibility. The difference between curiosity and capital is action, authentication, professional evaluation, strategic selling. These are not complicated steps, but they are decisive ones. So as we close, remember this. The greatest regret in the rare coin world is not buying too early, it's discovering too late. The 1958 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny error has already proven its worth. The market has spoken. The demand is real. And the next headline sale won't wait for anyone who hesitates. Check your coins. Respect their history. And recognize that sometimes the smallest cent can make the largest difference in your life. Because in America, wealth doesn't always come from what you earn. Sometimes it comes from what you already own. What if I told you that this coin is not ancient Roman gold, not a pirate treasure, but a humble 1958 Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny, a coin so misunderstood that many people unknowingly spend it for 1 cent, while others sell it for as much as $684,000. And here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask themselves. What if you already owned one and never knew it? This story begins at the end of an era. In 1958, the United States Mint struck the final Lincoln wheat pennies, closing a chapter that had lasted nearly half a century. It was the last year before the iconic wheat stalks disappeared forever, replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design. Coins struck during endings often carry a special energy in the collector world, because history rarely repeats itself cleanly. The Denver Mint, marked by the small but powerful D beneath the date, was producing millions of pennies that year, yet within that massive production run, something extraordinary happened. Errors were born. Mistakes that should have been destroyed slipped through the cracks, and those mistakes would later become legends. Now, let's pause for a second, because this is where most people lose focus. You might be thinking, it's just a penny. How special could it be? That thought alone has cost Americans millions of dollars over the decades. Coins do not become valuable because they are pretty. They become valuable because they are rare, misunderstood, and nearly impossible to replace once discovered. The 1958 Wheat Penny era fits all three categories perfectly, and that combination is exactly what creates explosive demand. The most valuable examples of this coin are not ordinary strikes. They are dramatic era coins, the kind that make professional graders stop, lean in, and smile. We're talking about strong doubling in Lincoln's lettering, distorted dates, misaligned strikes, and mechanical anomalies that should never have left the Denver Mint. These errors are not damage. They are not wear. They are born this way, flaws created during the minting process, and that distinction alone can mean the difference between 1 cent and a life-changing amount of money. Here's where excitement turns into urgency. Very few authenticated 1958 Wheat Penny era coins exist in top condition. Fewer still are available on the open market at any given time. When one appears, serious collectors don't negotiate slowly. They act fast. Why? Because once a high-grade example is locked into a private collection, it may disappear for decades. Some are never sold again. That scarcity fuels demand, and demand fuels price. That is how a coin reaches a current market value approaching $684,000, and that is why the window of opportunity is always smaller than people think. Let's reset your attention for a moment with a simple question. If someone offered to trade you a single penny for a luxury home, would you take the deal? Of course you would. And yet, thousands of people unknowingly pass on that exact trade every year because they never look closely at their coins. It sounds absurd until you realize that the wealthy don't ignore small things. They examine them. The emotional pull of the 1958 Wheat Penny is not just about money. It's about timing. It's about being early instead of late. Many collectors today regret dismissing Wheat Pennies decades ago, assuming their chance had already passed. But the truth is, the market for rare era coins has only grown stronger. As inflation rises and traditional investments feel uncertain, tangible assets with historical significance are more desirable than ever. Rare U.S. coins, especially those with documented errors, are no longer just collectibles. They are portable wealth. Fear enters the picture when you consider this reality. Every year, more of these coins are lost, damaged, or improperly cleaned, instantly destroying their value. Every year, estates are liquidated without proper evaluation. And every year, fewer pristine examples remain. That shrinking supply is not speculation. It is mathematical certainty. When supply goes down and demand remains strong, prices don't drift gently upward. They jump. Now let's connect the dots. You are not watching this video by accident. People who stumble into rare coin success stories usually share one thing in common: curiosity. They asked one more question. They looked one more time. They didn't assume. The 1958 Wheat Penny is especially dangerous to overlook because it looks ordinary at first glance. That's the trap. Its power is hidden in subtle details that only reveal themselves under closer inspection. And yes, let's bring in a moment of humor, because history has a sense of irony. Imagine spending years chasing financial freedom, only to discover it was sitting in a jar labeled spare change. That's not fiction. That's happened. More than once. In Act 3 of this story, everything comes together. Awareness becomes action. Knowledge becomes leverage. The individuals who benefit most from rare coins are not professional numismatists who started young. They are everyday people who recognized value before the crowd did. They understood that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. The current market appetite for high-grade 1958 Wheat Penny era coins is intense. Collectors, investors, and auction houses actively monitor these pieces because they represent a perfect storm of historical finality, minting era rarity, and emotional nostalgia. Lincoln Wheat Pennies connect generations. They remind people of grandparents, of simpler times, of America's industrial strength. When you combine that emotional resonance with extreme scarcity, you get prices that shock the unprepared. Here is the most important takeaway. Opportunities like this don't last forever. but they also don't announce deadlines. The market doesn't send warnings. It simply rewards those who pay attention. If you own old coins, inherited coins, or wheat pennies you've never examined closely, the cost of ignoring them may be far greater than the effort it takes to look. The 1958 D. Lincoln 1-cent wheat penny is not just a coin. It is a reminder that value often hides in plain sight. That wealth can be quiet. That history can be profitable. And that sometimes, the smallest objects carry the biggest potential. So before you dismiss your change, before you overlook the past, ask yourself one final question. If a single penny could change your financial future, wouldn't you want to know? Because the people who already do are the ones quietly winning.